Welcome, welcome, welcome to Night School. I am your host, Latanya Washington, and we are back by demand. We're talking once again with Dr. Akin regarding the impact of systemic racism on mental illness, mental health. And I say not in just mental health in a broad arena, but we're focusing in on the Black culture. So get ready. Get ready for it. I hope it's not going to be a bumpy ride, but it just might be a little bit bumpy. So be prepared. Hey, you all, and welcome to Night School. I am your host, Miss Latanya Washington, and I am here today with the one and only professor, master trainer, Dr. Akin. And let me say a little bit about her as well. She believes in creating atmospheres where healing and restoration are evident. She's a master trainer, a family psychologist, professor, wife, daughter, mother, and inspires people to restore fractured structures into sustainable legacies. That's what it is all about. Remembering that we have legacies that will go on for generations after generations. Good afternoon, Dr. Akin. How are you?
I am so well. Thank you so much for having me back, Latanya. Thank you for what you do, though. This is amazing. Who you've put the system together where you get us here to actually help elucidate and help impact change in the community. So thank you for
Well,
that.
thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your talents and your gifts with the world. It is so appreciative. We so appreciate it. And you are so special. Thank God for you. And
Thank
so
you.
let's get
I am
right
special.
into it. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So let's get right into it because, before we started this broadcast, we had a conversation and I'm looking to bring it up because I believe it is part of systemic racism. And so before we left the prior show, we talked about the damage that it has placed on us, especially as a culture. Let's touch back on that again, dealing with the systemic racism, Dr. Ken.
Mhm. Last time we were here, I just want to remind everyone that we talked about some biological factors and physiological factors, some things that go on in your brain and that you actually physically react to when we talked about the stress response system in your brain. We talked about when you have this incoming stimuli that your brain cannot handle, and it looks like you don't have the tools to handle it. It's going to ask for help, and part of asking for help is getting adrenaline pumping and getting cortisol pumping in your system, and this could be damaging if they don't shut off. If you're continuously keep getting impacted, and you constantly be on a state of alert, and that is very, it can be very devastating to well-being. I'm going to tell you something. I'm a Christian, and I believe that there's in John 10:10 that talks about the thief has come to steal, to kill, and to destroy, but he has come to give us life. Now, the literal translation says life till it flows, till it overflows. So full life that is abundant, life that is overflowing. And one thing trauma would cause, it's that it would hinder us from having that abundant life. The maker of humanity wants us to have abundant life. And when I see these things that impede us or hinder us from having this just extraordinary joy and laughter that is so beautiful, and relationships that are enduring, and families that are healthy, when we have trauma, we can't achieve those things. And this is why we need to address this concept from the root. We need to say enough. We're no longer going to be just the traumatized people. Now, one thing we also need to realize, and I think I talked about this last week, and if I didn't, okay, here it is. And if I did, you hear it again. It's there are traumatic events that don't have to be traumatizing. So traumatic events like a hurricane, somebody dies, an accident, those events in themselves are traumatic events. But not everyone who experiences those events will be traumatized. So just so we know that there's racial trauma. So racial trauma itself impacts all of us, but we're not all in a state of trauma. We all need to know that there's we are innately, inherently, resilient human beings. And so some of us will move on. We're going to be able to get a level of success. We're going to be able to get some level of abundance. Okay, but we're talking about us collectively as a group. We want to see that in this group, this is who we're talking about. In that group, there will be people who are doing just fine. So you might hear this now and say, oh my God, they're talking about trauma again. It doesn't impact me. But yes, it does, because you're part of this collective system, this beautiful group called the, African Americans or Black groups culture in this world. We're all together. Either you're African American, either you're African, Caribbean, we're all the same. We're all one. We're knitted together. So if one person suffers, it impacts the rest of us.
So
And
I
so
have
that's what we're talking about last.
and I have a question for you. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Um, my question to you is, because we're talking about it's a global thing. We see so many people around the world standing up for justice now. And so
Absolutely.
talking about the Black culture, us here as African Americans, and of course we have Africans like you are African. What is your tribe, Dr. Akin?
I'm from Nigeria, Yoruba.
Yoruba. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what is the impact, or is there an impact on the African culture? What's the
Mm,
talk in regards to that?
absolutely. Just like we have internalized oppression
Yeah.
here, we have neocolonization in
Mhm.
Africa. We have the residues of colonization still is alive and well. We have our culture that has been stripped from us.
Yeah.
And we have those things. We have language that's been changed. We speak a different language than we did when before the white people came over. We have a country that doesn't look like we had before they came over. I mean, Nigeria, for example, is basically they brought different countries together to form that one country. So there's so many ramifications and consequences of colonization that we're dealing with. We're dealing with high debt, in different countries where they charge you for development. They charge you for developing your country. They charge you for all kinds of things. So we have that. We have ties that I've even heard that there's some countries who still charge. There's some countries in Africa who are still paying their colonized nations. And then you also heard in the UK, we heard about this a few weeks ago in the papers that it came out that actually they were paying taxes and paying the colonists. I mean, the people who actually colonized, the slave owners, they were paying them. So can you imagine? So there's ramification, there are consequences over there and over here. We're the same. The thing that happens is this whole concept of segregation, this whole concept of, oh, you guys sold us over there, and we came over here and you didn't find us. Look, first of all, we couldn't get on a plane to come find anybody. Okay. Secondly, the whole concept of slavery is foreign in Africa. We have a concept of servants, like servants. We have servants, which is different. You bring somebody to serve you in your home, which mostly you take care of that person. You take care of that person. People even send them to school. This person is here to serve you. They become part of your household. So when people were shipped over here, and by the way, they were not like, given over to, okay, here's why people take them. But when they left, some of the understanding was they were going to be adopted into the culture. they were going to become a part of this culture. And so all of this, egregious consequences of slavery, separation of families and beatings and all of these things that happen, being non-human and all of that's completely foreign to us. And so we just as there were consequences, there's consequences for slavery, there's also consequences, negative ramifications for colonization. And that's what we call neocolonization. There's still remnants of it. It's still there. We're still struggling for. The only difference is that we own the land. You know, we whatever we want to do now, it's up to us. We have to decide who we're going to be as a continent and who we're going to be as a people, because now whatever happened, we own the place. Now here we're struggling for ownership. We're struggling for a piece of the pie. That's the
Right.
biggest difference.
Right. And that's the big difference, because now we're struggling for ownership. And it's so much happening, and I'm glad that, it's sad that everything's been going on, but it was so necessary for our eyes to be opened up. And even with it all, you begin to recognize true leadership. And I think I spoke with someone in regards to that before, when true leaders rise up to the occasion and do what's necessary. And so it's opened up our eyes to a lot. I think for the culture, and I want you to share a little bit about this, even for the culture, it's opened up our eyes. And so now it's just a matter of, even though the eyes are now open, what do we need to do when it comes to the
Oh
educational
my Lord.
system? Oh my God, social economics. Should we start with education? Let's start with the education system. What do we,
You know,
since we know that, what do we need to do? Because, that's another story.
well, when we talk about systemic racism,
Hmm.
um, uh, the focus right now is on the police department. But when
Yeah.
we talk about systemic racism, it's all the systems.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine there was all these years of slavery, 200 years of slavery, not 400, but you have this years of slavery, and then you have Jim Crow that came after that. So during the years of slavery, first of all, you were told that you are not a human being, you're someone's property.
Three
You're
fifths.
not permitted to read, write. You're not permitted to think for yourself. You're listening to me, right? You're not permitted to think for yourself. You're not permitted to have a nucleus family of a mother and a dad and a child. You weren't permitted to have those. They would take the man away from the house. They would separate you. So the family was disconstructed. Are you with me? Now, that generation or those generation now give rise to, fast forward when we talk about freedom or whatever you want to call it at the time, or have freedom, and then you get to a point where people start fighting for their rights when we get to the Jim Crow, and they actually had a law that was passed that says we're separate but equal. You see, understand that? So you would go to a restroom that says colors only, or whites only. And so all of this have psychological impact, because that still says that you're still not a full human being. And I'm getting someplace. Not only does it say that you're not a full human being, it also means that in the corridors of power, okay, where there was education or legal system or economic system, all of the systems, we were never at the table. Never, we're not there to decide. We were not there to decide the goodness and the common, to partake of the commonwealth. Everything had been distributed for people that didn't look like us. Are you with me? And so the education system, even the books were written from the perspective of those who were in power. Everything was written there. That's their own narratives. That's what we read. So even in the schools and in the justice system, all of that. So now fast forward to this point, to we're now in 2020, the 21st century. Now somebody says, "You get over it, because there's no more racism. There is no structural damage or institutional racism. We're all the same. I didn't do anything, so why should I be held responsible?" Well, I didn't do anything either. Neither did you do anything either. You just show, you're just here. However, the thing about it is that now we have to go back to look at those structures and see if they work in our favor or not. But studies show and statistics show that they don't work in our favor. So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So one of the things that need to happen is we need to begin to function as a nation, as a people. We have to begin to function as a people, a cohesive group of people. Not just, I don't mean that we all think alike. I don't mean that we're all Republicans or Democrat. And I'm not saying that, but we have the same mission and the same goal, which is the advancement of Black people, okay, and their generation. That needs to be in the collective thought of all of us. We need to begin to say, what can we do as a group to lift the tide, to raise the tide, because when the tide rises, all the boats will lift. What we've been trying to do is we've been trying to lift each boat individually. That is going to take too long. What we need to do is let the tide lift, and we can cause that to rise. If the tide rises, all the boats will lift on the river. And so and the way we do that is together. Together, we need to now begin to say, what can we do to build a people? We're nation builders, so that you're no longer thinking of your individual business. You're thinking, how am I going to support you to come alongside? How are we going to build this community? And you might not think about building the entire Black race, that's too much, but within your community, you can start there. Or your community of friends, your family, together, you're saying, let's do these things together. Because we cannot adopt the mentality of the Western world, which is very individualistic. We just says, me, myself, and I, this is what we need to do. And we cannot ascribe or subscribe to all of the notions of success. I wrote something on my Facebook page today. We're talking about the Black tax. You've heard of it. And the Black tax talking about, when you earn your money, it's not just for you. You're going to take care of Shanae, you're going to take care of Auntie Joe, you're going to take care of cousin Nikki, you're going to take care of all those people who are still struggling, right? And the whole notion was that we're not meeting the expectation, the financial economic success in this country because of this Black tax. So what I was saying on the page was that the Black tax is almost like an African tax too, because we also, especially in diaspora, we send money. There was over 1 billion, is it 1 billion or 100 billion? Oh my God, I can't remember. It's a lot of money. I think it's about 100 billion, that's been sent from this country from the West. Doesn't have to be just this country. It could be in the UK, total in the past 6 years. It's a lot of money that's going out. And what is the money going out for? To take care of family, to take care of friends, to take care of this, to all of those things. Because we are a community, we're a tribe. And so when you do that, and maybe you haven't bought a house yet, or maybe you haven't done this yet, people look at you and they say, oh my God, the Black people are not doing this, but we're doing something else. What we're trying to do is fix the damage that's been done by the system. You have stripped us of the power, redlining. You've done all kinds of things that we have to now try to make up for. The family is conflicted. The family is divided. We have to bring this together. And sometimes when you are the foundation, when you're trying to bring things together and people together, you might not have time to build wealth yet.
Right.
But you're building family.
You're building family.
Family has been destroyed. The Black family has been under attack. So our job right now is we need to build the family and make sure that we get back what we had before. We have to have the fathers have to be in the home. Do you know there are more Black men in jail now than there was during slavery, than there were slaves?
That's part of the system.
There you go. And it's not because they're committing more offenses either. That's just the way the system is. So we need to say as a group, it's not just because I hear people say economic wealth, and I've said it myself, economic wealth. We need to do that. but we need to also begin to build the family. We need to have the family intact. We need to say, you know what? Well, just like the Hebrews, Moses told Pharaoh. Moses told Pharaoh, when Pharaoh said, you can go, you and some of this men, you can go worship and leave your women and leave your animals. And he said, what? He said to them, no, everybody's coming out.
Everybody.
My dog, my cat, my everybody's coming out. So we need to come to a point here where we say we're all coming out of slavery. We're all coming out of this racist system, and
Yeah.
everybody's coming out. And we're coming out not just economically. We're going to have our minds intact, which is why we do what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
going to have our families intact. We're going to have relationships intact. We want to be in a place where we're enjoying the overflowing life. Everything has to work. We're not just going to be an economic people without families. We're going to be economically sound and successful, but we're going to have families that
Yeah.
prosper. We're going to have
Yeah.
families that can sit at a table together and love each other.
That's right. And that's the tribe.
That's the
That
tribe.
family is that's the tribe.
We
And
got to
then you go out
rebuild it.
and you build from there. And so I like
Absolutely.
what you said, because we have to build family. And I think the mindset has been, it's all about the mindset, because the mindset for most people is, I have to go out and make the money. I have to make the money. We have to make the money. Because too, I've heard things in regards to, our black men and black women. Some saying that the black women have more power than the black man. I want you to touch on that, because has that been something else as far as systemic racism for them to make us believe that? Because I've literally heard black men say our black women have more are leveled up, have more status compared to them, and it's been designed that way. What do you say in regards to that?
It's a system of division,
Yeah,
and we have to understand this. Okay, so if I can divide, look, I'm
yeah,
not only going to divide husbands and wives. I'm not only going to divide families. I'm also going to divide blacks all over the world. I'm going to divide American blacks and African blacks and Brazilian blacks, and we're just going to, because a house divided cannot stand. And so then what happens is this, when you're saying, oh, the women are the why are the women are doing better, black women? Well, why is that? You have to ask, why is
the
that?
question, why is
You have
that?
to ask the question. Because first of all, is there an agenda? Because when you have all these men in jail, or when they go to job interviews and you don't give them a job, but you would give the woman a job, is that a design? Is that a design? It's like the black man is almost like this pariah. It's just somebody that we want to stifle. Okay, so
Mhm.
we as a community have to understand that we have to honor our men. We have
Yeah,
to we have to let them know that we love them, and we have to let them know that they are welcomed in the house and they're welcomed in the home. And no matter how much you're making, it doesn't matter. It's not the money that counts. It's
mm-mm.
not the status that counts. We're talking about building. Look, the DNA of heaven,
Mhm.
the DNA of success has been put in families. So when you have a destruction of family, you
Mhm.
have a destruction of every fundamental success layers
In
in
the
the
world.
in the world. Period. So
Mhm.
family is important. That's where wealth is. That is where joy is. It's in the context of family that we learn how to be human beings. It's like where we learn to trust, where we learn to love, where we learn to forgive, where we learn all the goodness. So when that is destroyed, it becomes a better journey for us. We
Mhm.
begin to look, we scratch our heads and think, oh my God, how am I going to make it? Because the structures, the systems that has been put in there are no longer there.
That's right.
No matter how good you are as a mother, you can never be a father. You
Never.
can't. You can't. And I love all of the single mothers out there. And look, I understand that this is not to discount anybody. That's not what I'm saying. But you don't know how to be a father. We just don't. No matter how good a mother I am, I can never be a father. Okay, no matter how good a father you are, you can never be a mother.
No.
So there's a reason why this things balances out. And when the family system itself has been, you know, destroyed or has been deconstructed in such a way that we don't even know what it looks like, then we have a problem.
And that is so key. And so you're in a place now where you don't even know what it looks like because, for me, even as a Black woman, and then to hear that from a male, you don't realize that until it's actually brought to your awareness, it's brought to your attention, and we were talking about even when in regards to, we talked about colorism, we talked about so much, but everything has been designed to break us apart. And just like you
Absolutely.
said, even around the world, Brazil, Africa, it's all designed to break us apart because we've even heard things, Dr. Akin, even as African American people here, that there's some Africans don't like African Americans. And
Imagine
so
that.
and so you begin to say, where did that come from? Or people love the Africans more than they love African American. It is so strange. And so you begin to realize a lot of stuff that is happening in our world that we have to, I think it comes from awareness. You have to become aware of it and deal with that. We have to become aware of it. And once we are aware of it, now it's time to combat it, from
Absolutely.
families on to the separate, all of that. Talk on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we have Latanya, you know what? This
Yeah.
computer is about to die. I don't know why. I gotta get a plug. Can you give me one
Oh,
quick
snap.
second? You
Okay,
have to talk.
she
Keep
got to get a
talking.
plug. She got to get a
Yeah.
plug. So you guys, I
Sorry.
know, we can't have that. And so you all, before she comes, while she's grabbing her plug, we were talking about, we're dealing with the impact of systemic racism on mental health. And now we're dealing with the structure of the families, and we're dealing with the relationships and all of these other things that are happening, even colorism, basically a disconnect between the dark skin and the light skin. All of this stuff is going on, but it is part of a system to keep us apart, to pull us apart way back centuries ago. And so it's something that, as I was saying, Dr. Ken, once we become aware of it, now it's time to combat it. It's time to fight it. Even if you don't feel like it, you got to press through. Okay.
Absolutely. But if anything, once you have a revelation, or when you're aware of something,
Yeah.
then it's your responsibility to respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a responsibility to respond to the understanding that you have. So once you have that understanding, then you have to respond in some way. You
Yeah.
can't not just walk away. And I remember, and I was sharing the story with you earlier. I remember when I've been in the United States. I'm a naturalized citizen, so I'm a Nigerian American. And but I remember when those days, years ago, 19 whatever. I'm not going to date myself. Years ago, and so and I just got here. First of all, it was the first time anyone ever called me black, and I had no concept of that.
Really?
Honestly, I didn't know this. Even today, when Africans hear that people are called black, they're like, "Well, why would you call somebody that?" It's so strange to us, because you have a name, you are a people. And so when I heard that people were being referred to as black, I was like, "Why?" Like I didn't understand it at all. And then the other thing that came to my attention then was I had this very I had this light skinned friend, and another one. I had two friends. One was light skinned and one was dark skinned. And this dark skinned one said, "Oh, well, you can't really be friends with her because she's uppity or she's this." And I was like, "Why?" And then she said, then she told me the whole thing about the paper bag, this and
Colorism.
colorism and all that. And I thought, hmm, that doesn't make any sense because to white people, you're black. you know, that was that was my first that was my first that was my first reaction. And because I come from a place where in Nigeria we have the different parts of the country, different skin tones.
Yeah.
Okay, if you went to the places closer to the
Equator.
to the water, to the
Mm,
ocean, they're lighter skin, and then you go to the desert, they're more dark skinned,
yeah.
tall, lanky, which are these are people who have to adapt to the desert heat. Then we have where I come from, where the different shades. And so I grew up with people who looked, like white, and people who look dark, dark, dark. So and for me, they were all Nigerians. They were either Yoruba or Hausas or this. There was no difference. It didn't even matter. And so when you get here and that becomes an issue, I thought, here is the issue. Now so now the whole system has got you to a point where you no longer identify with your own people. That is racism turned inwardly. Okay, that's racism turned inward. It's this internalized oppression. You know what internalized oppression is? It's all part colorism. All of this is all part of internalized oppression. Internalized oppression basically is hate turned inward. So my master or my person, whoever has been treated me really badly has done that, but they've gone. They left. They're no longer within my circle. But even though they left their tracks inside me. They left all of the nuances, all of the hatred, they left with me. Okay. So they told me I wasn't good enough. They told me the lighter skinned one was better. They told me that I couldn't do a good job with my own people. I had to get with other white people in order to be successful. This is what they've told me. So when they left me, when they went away, they left a gift that kept on giving. It's called internalized oppression. And that is when I become the hater myself. I become the master myself. So now I start hating people who look like me. I start hating people who think like me because I have been taught to hate them. But not only that, seeing them reminds me of myself.
Yeah.
And I don't like myself because they've told me not to like myself. You understand where I'm going? So when you start seeing people talking about colorism, or I prefer to be with lighter skin and I want to do this, that's all trauma responses. That's all it is. It's all
Trauma.
a trauma. It's all a trauma response. It's all internalized oppression. It's all about a racist response. That's all it is. And because what you're saying is you're not good enough. It's all part of shame. I'm not good enough. Okay. And because I'm not good enough, I don't want you to remind me of me, which is why a Black person will get into a place of authority, in a position of authority, and they won't hire Black people. Because
Ooh,
I don't
that's
want too
deep.
many, I don't want too many of you around here because you're going to remind me of who I am. Okay. You're going to remind me of who I am. And I've been taught to hate myself. So even if
Wow.
you come, I'm going to sabotage you because you don't belong here. You don't
Internal.
belong here. Internalized oppression. I
Yeah.
am now going to oppress not only myself, I'm going to oppress everybody that looks like me. And I might not even want to have anything to do with you anyway. Why? Because I don't like me.
I don't like we need so much therapy. We need so much to just break down because just like I was saying, we are now coming into an awareness because we're beginning to talk more about it. But we have to go further than just being aware. Now we have to do the work. And we have to be willing to do the work in order to get past this. And I think that's all part of even bringing down the systemic racism, everything that we're dealing with, because we have to come together, as you said, as a tribe, as a group, and begin to do what we need to do in order to break down the system. I love this. I love this. This is good because once we are aware, you guys, we now have to take that awareness and begin to do the work to definitely break down the system that has been oppressing us for years upon years upon years. Because you have families that are bickering and fighting. It's amazing how you see some families, even at funerals, they are going ballistic.
Absolutely.
And it's not necessary. Okay, so and I know we have to go. Lord have mercy, because this is always some good stuff. But Dr. Akin, and I know we are with We're on with Hawaii, Miss Sharon in Hawaii
Yes.
on this coming Thursday, and we're going to be talking more about it, and we'll be able to share with you guys live as well. But to give us your final thoughts on tonight, because this is a good, and I think the word that I'm hearing tonight has been awareness. When we become aware, even as Black men and as Black women, we're becoming aware of the different statuses and where we are, even as families, becoming aware that we have to learn to build together. Even the colors of our skin, what we're dealing with, we're internalizing that, and we won't bring each other up just because. Now we're aware of this, guys, and now we have to push through. So, Dr. Akin, give us your final words on this afternoon before we end out. This
I
was good.
want, yeah, you know what? I wrote some things that I wanted to remember to talk about.
Yes.
And I'm just going to read them out. So
Yes.
there's some of the things that we have to understand. Last week we talked about increased vigilance and suspicion. But
Yes.
that also means that you're suspicious of groups, okay, of schools, agencies, government. Not only that, you start being suspicious of relationships. Okay, you start being suspicious of relationships. You don't trust anybody. Okay, there's no trust, and without trust you can't build intimacy. Without intimacy you can enjoy the fullness of life. You see what I'm saying? Number two, increased sensitivity to threats, and this is important. What happens is we're always in the defensive posture,
Yeah.
always avoiding. Always you have somebody going to say something to you, you go from a 0 to 100 like that in a minute. you know Avoiding new situations. So that means we don't try new things. We don't try new things because we always feel that this threat is constantly there. So we're not going to try new things. Increased psychological and physiological symptoms. I've talked about that. That's your heart rate, your the cortisol, and all of those things happen. Anxiety, depression, all of these things are in our system. Now, what does see? So all of these things now mean that we don't feel safe.
Right.
Okay, we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe. We don't feel safe in our communities. We don't feel safe with relationships. We don't feel safe in systems. We don't trust police. We don't trust judiciary. We don't trust that, but we also don't trust each other. So there is this feeling of I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So the first thing, talking about what should we do,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about the awareness I wanted to bring today is about building safe communities, building safe families. Where you can start with is with your own family. Make sure your own family is safe. Because what people do is they're going to go form all kinds of relationships outside. And the reason they want to form it outside is because they don't want to look at the pain inside, inwardly. But please, if it's painful, it's just telling you that it needs medication. It needs to be triaged. Pain is okay. It just shows you that there is hope. It shows you that that place just needs to be fixed. And I'm calling on all of us to begin to just take a stand to fix the pain. Let's fix this pain. Let's fix this communal pain. And the way you do that is, even if it's just by bringing back Sunday brunch, or talking on the phone, or saying, look, I hear you. Stop trying to be defensive. So you tell your people, you say, look, I don't understand where you're coming from, but I hear you. I don't understand where you're coming from, but I hear you.
Mhm.
So just acknowledge people's pain. Don't try to say, because what happens sometimes is, because I've been traumatized, and when you bring your trauma, we try to up one another. Okay, and mine is like this, and mine is like this. No. To build safe communities, we all have to kind of breathe a little bit, bring it down. Remember, I told you, I don't know when I told you last week, one of the ways you triage trauma is by
Mhm.
breathing. You decrease the heart rate.
Yeah.
You just breathe through it. Okay. And then you just tell people, you tell each other in the family, we don't all agree, but we love each other. You say that to each other, write letters of apologies if you need to. Whatever you need to do, call somebody on the phone, say, you know what? I know what I did was wrong. I'm sorry. Just everybody needs to, because we need to, if we don't build a family, nothing is going to happen. I don't care what anybody says. We have to rebuild the families. We have to because in that family is everything you need to survive. In that family is everything you need to thrive. Because you would not be in that family if you didn't have what you needed. Okay, you will not be in there. You're in there for a reason. You're in that family for a reason. So let's begin to build our families and make them safe places, because the world is already scary. The everything outside is already scary. We don't trust any of the systems. We're already on a state of alert. So in the house, we don't want to be on a state of alert anymore. We want to say, you know what, we're going to bring this down. We want this to be a safe place. So everybody today should write, this is a safe place in their homes. This is a safe place. And when it's a safe place, not only will it become a safe place for your family, it will now become a safe place for the extended community, because people are going to know that it's a safe place.
It's a safe place. Building the safe place. And
Yes.
and building the foundation, building the families. And this is how we begin to fight, and we begin to break down the opposition. We begin to break down the systemic racism that's going on, because we can win. We will win. But we have to now, we have the tools, you guys. Now we know what we need to do. We have to build. We have to build self. We have to build family. And we have to then extend and keep going from place to place. Yes. Did you have one
Oh
thing?
yes, you saw me. I had something. It thought just occurred to me. If you're a husband, wife, or in a relationship, and you're struggling with intimacy,
Yeah.
you're struggling with intimacy, and you're like, oh, my wife doesn't do this, or my husband doesn't do this. You're struggling with that. I want you to give them grace, because
Yeah.
their response to you is a trauma response. That's not the real them. Okay? When we fall in love, when we fall in love with people, we fall in love with the best of them. The
Yeah.
one that is that, because you can't see the faults of them then. But when life happens and we're in this relationship, and this is a woman or a man that you love, and then you just know, oh, they don't want to have sex anymore. They don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to do that anymore. That's because the trauma is impeding your relationship. And so what you need to do, hold your wife, hold your husband, and tell them that you hear them, you see them, and that it's going to be okay. Accept them for who they are now. If you can do that, you would have healed your entire family, and you would have the best wife or the best husband, just by saying, I get it. I see you.
Those three words: I get it. I see you. I love you. Those little things. And for some people, sometimes it has been difficult for people to say it. But now, you guys, now you understand. Just say those things, and it can strengthen the bond. And so this is good, because this is how we rebuild. This is how we rebuild, Doc. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you were able to be here on today, and you brought that up to us, and you brought up this information, because now we know how to fight. This is how we fight. And this is how we get through. This is how we make it, and we make it together. Oh my goodness, this is good stuff. Okay, I'm done. All right, I couldn't see comments. I know we were so engulfed in this conversation to where I didn't even pay attention to comments that were going on. But thank you so much for this amazing information. And as you said, building, we have to build as families, and we have to build as husbands and wives, sons and daughters, families, all of this. And this is how we get through. This is how we get to the next level. And thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to all of you guys that were part of night school. Our prayer is that the information that was given to you, that you will use it, and you will run with it, and you will share it with other people, to help them get through the process, because we're here. This is our tribe. We're here together. We're here to make a difference in the lives of so many people. And so, as we end this call on today, our prayer is that you stay safe, that you continue being the best you that you can possibly be. Tell your family, tell your friends, I love you. I see you. It's okay. And let's build a better place together. And so until next week, we'll see you again on Night
Night
School.
school.